Welcome to the Charlie Star podcast, where we dive into all things meta, witchy, new age, astrological, alternative, and spiritual. I'm your host, Charlie Star. So today we have, back by popular demand, hello, Nyanda.
Hey, girl.
And we're going to be talking about twin flames, as promised on our last episode. So, twin flames. Nyanda, I did a little bit of research on twin flames. I know it's something that you and I have talked about like a lot. But I haven't really done like a bunch of research on it because I totally like hate the idea, honestly. I don't want it to be real, but I'm pretty sure it is. And so I just Google, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do a little Google search. I'm gonna see what's out there about twin flames. And so when I looked up the definition of twin flames, I found, what was it that I sent you? I'm gonna pull it up. It's the mythology, right? Okay, so what I found was the concept of twin flames can be traced to the 5th century BC. According to Greek mythology, this made me mad. Humans originally had a head with 2 faces, 2 pair of arms, and 2 pair of legs. However, Zeus feared their power and split them into 2 separate parts. The pair spent their lives in search of the other half. Okay, so when I look up the definition for twin flames, basically what I find is that it's this concept of 2 people that share the same soul. And we'll get into like my opinion about that later, because I think there's different kinds of twins and I don't think everybody has a twin. But what I found was I looked up medical news. Oh, this is so funny. I just Googled what is a twin flame, and the first thing that popped up was medicalnewstoday.com. And I was howling because I was like, what the heck does Medical News Today have to say about twin flames? Like, this does not seem like their area of expertise. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's what's weird to me. I'm like, since when did they get involved in that shit? You know what I mean?
I know. I was laughing, but I was like, now I'm curious. Now I have to read it. And I actually kind of liked some of the stuff that they said. Okay, because so the first thing that they said was that there's not scientific evidence for twin flames. It's a phenomenon that a lot of people experience, right?
Right.
So I thought that was kind of important because there's some things that like are backed up by science, like the chakra system.
Right.
But
exactly.
yeah, but the twin flame, they're saying there's no scientific evidence for it, but there's a lot of people that can attest to it, right? And then they had like a bunch of they had like a whole list, and I actually found this same list like the steps of a twin flame like on different websites. But I don't know if we need to go into the steps because I didn't really agree with a lot of it. But
I know, right?
But then it goes, are twin flames toxic? And it says the twin flame ideology is ultimately a concept, and some theoretical stages may share similarities with unhealthy or toxic relationship traits. People may use the ideology as an excuse for toxic behavior. However, in healthy relationships, people try to not intentionally hurt or abuse others. And then it talks about the signs for abusive relationships from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence: possessiveness, extreme jealousy, bad temper, cruelty to animals, verbal abuse, antiquated, basically outdated beliefs about gender roles, forced sex, extreme controlling behavior, sabotage of partners' birth control methods, blaming behavior, controls of finances, accusation about partners, flirting or having an affair, controlling how a partner acts and what they wear, demanding or demeaning the partner privately or in public, embarrassing or humiliating partner in front of others, harassing the partner at work, hindering the partner from working or going to school. So just wanted to be clear that we are not here to promote abusive relationships, at all. At all.
At all.
So, yeah. So I just want to put that out there because the other thing that I did find after I was reading this article was what I felt like websites that were exploiting people that like maybe have borderline personality disorder that like can't let go of somebody that broke up with them.
Right.
And they're like, pay, here, here, and here for our course on twin flames. Everybody has a twin flame and they have to be with their twin flame. And that's how we're going to like ascend as like, consciousness of the universe. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no.
None of that. That's why I told you I gave up on it. Remember?
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
like, anyway, I'll get there in a sec.
Okay. So that's basically all that I wanted to just put out there, because I definitely do not want to be like, on here, like promoting like some unhealthy toxic fever, if that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I have my own experience with the twin flame phenomenon, and Nanda, you do too. So, Nanda, why don't you tell us, like, how would you like define for our listeners what a twin flame is?
Okay, that's funny. Okay, so how to define a twin flame? Well, exactly like what you said, it's somebody that shares the same soul as you. The way that I was kind of explained to it, okay, so I've been explained to it in like two different ways, and they were totally opposite of each other, right? So the first time it was explained to me was by one of my teachers, and he told me that the twin flame connection was like oil and water, right? Essentially, or like in the sense of like yin and yang, you guys surround each other, but you guys don't mix, right?
Okay.
And according to, I guess, a lot of indigenous belief systems, the twin flame is a really toxic connection, or it has
Mm,
it more often than not turns into being a really toxic connection. Um, because either one, that person is the polar opposite of you, right? Just when we talk about yin and yang, day and night, or just because that person is such a mirror of your flaws as well as your strengths. And if you're not emotionally intelligent enough to be able to perceive it that way, that you'll just think that it's just like really fucking frustrating, right? Now, the other time that I've had it explained to me, it was explained as though the same way that this is somebody that you share a soul with, that you might have been one person at one point in time, but that the soul split due to either it could be a traumatic experience, or sometimes it could just simply be a desire to learn a certain amount of lessons within a certain time span, right? So that you guys split and live two separate lives, but then eventually you guys merge together back as one soul. I've also heard it kind of like the whole Krishna Radha, like if you know anything about that story, where it's like you're one power and they're another power. When you guys combine, it's like a plug into an input. It's like you give each other the power. Now, all three of those could be true, right? But the bigger issue at hand is like exactly what you said, is how do you determine whether this is somebody that is literally somebody that you share a soul with, as opposed to somebody that you're just having a really fucking hard time letting go. In my experience, I've never dated my twin flame, and I've barely known my twin flame. So I can honestly tell you that this is the phenomenon that is the confusing part of me, because I okay, this is how I knew it was the twin flame and it wasn't just somebody I had a crush on that I wasn't letting go of. I barely know you, but somehow I know all about you. You know
mm,
what I'm saying? I know all about you. I know what your triggers are. I know what your fears are. I can really tap really deep into your subconscious in a way that makes both of us really uncomfortable. But he can do the same thing. But we don't know each other like that, right? So somehow
mm-hmm.
you have this reservoir of information, but you've never discussed it with each other before. There's also this. I'm hearing a genetic link. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the scientific
Oh,
part. My guides will throw random shit in there. I'm not going
wow.
there. I don't know what that is, but what I will say as well is that there's like I can physically feel when he's going through something, and I can also physically feel when he's geographically close to me. And that's without him telling me, without him calling me, without me having any idea. I can feel when he's around. Sometimes he can even pick up where I'm at, which is I told you the other day, I'm like a little bit creepy, but it's fine. But it's like this connection where this is somebody who is so connected to you where you don't really have to say much. And I don't mean like, oh, in the romantic beautiful sense. I mean, no, literally, how the fuck does this guy know all this shit and he feels the same way about me? And it makes sense when you're like, oh, okay, this is the twin. Oh, that's weird. And then of course you feel this really strong connection, and at first it feels beautiful, right? Because it's like, wow, we really get along. And then the ugly part comes, and I'm like, why are you like this and why am I like this? And it's funny because in the connection, I've seen my twin flame grow like exponentially. He's matured a lot, he's calmed down a lot. We go back and forth a little bit, but he has grown a lot. I don't want to attribute it to the connection though. I just want to attribute it to like maybe you're learning lessons. But I have noticed since we've connected, there's certain behaviors that I saw him essentially partaking in before that he's not partaking in as much now, if at all, right? But on that same wavelength, other areas of my life where I was exhibiting the same behavior but in a different way, that I've also grown as well, simply by his behavior and me just being really emotionally aware. I'm like, well, you really piss me off when you do this, guy. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing the same shit, aren't I? Oh, oh. And then I'm like, maybe
Ooh.
I should check that out. And because it's so easy to point at him and be like, you're the toxic one. You're the one that's doing A, B, and C. And you're the one that's doing whatever. But then I realized that in the same way, I'm doing the exact same thing. And it's not like
Mm.
in the abusive way. It's more in the like, well, why are you thinking about it like this? Well, I'm thinking about it like this because of this. And it's like, oh shit, I'm doing the same thing as you are. But that's the frustration part of it because there's the strong connection. And that's why they say most twin flames don't unite for the simple sake of that's just really fucking frustrating to go through. Like you don't want to be you don't want to have the
Yeah.
spotlight
Yeah. No,
shined
I
on
have.
your
Yeah.
flaws all the
Mm-hmm.
time. But and there's this weird, I don't know, because I feel like I'm going through emotional waves with him right now, but it's like there's this love and this protection at the same time, but then it's like we'll get close and I'll be like, oh, you get on my nerves. And like, well, you get on my nerves too. I'm like, well, you don't have any reason to be annoyed with me. And he's like, well, I feel like you don't have any reason to be annoyed with me. All right, well, we're both wrong. That's true. All right, I'm gonna take a break from you. And then we take the break and it's not a real break. So yeah. It's just like
Yeah, I feel like you really can't. I mean, we were talking about this before we started recording about how it's almost like you can't take a break because
yeah.
the psychic connection is so strong, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that you can't really break it. Like you were talking about doing like cord cuttings and it's like he just walks right through it. Like it doesn't even matter
He just walks right
because
through it.
I mean, and you can speculate on, okay, do you share a soul with this person, or do you just have some type of, like you said, oil and water, yin and yang? Like, one thing that like Shiva has explained to me is kind of like the Shiva
Telepathy.
Shakti connection, where like Shakti is like the water and the earth, and Shiva is the fire and the air, and like basically like that Shiva is like I don't know. That may be like a whole different thing. I'm still trying to
No,
figure
it's
that
not.
connection out. Okay, but it's like it's something where it's like there's a connection that like transcends lifetimes, right?
Right.
And so you have some type of direct access to this person because that's what I've experienced it as, like whether or not like you understand, you agree with, or like conceptualize it as like sharing a soul or not sharing a soul, or like being connected, or like whatever it is, the experience of it is what you're talking about, where it's like there's this person that you somehow intimately know, and there's no context for it within the framework of like your
Right.
actual three-dimensional life,
Right.
right? And
Exactly.
I think that's what can really like fuck with people's minds, and it certainly has done with mine and with my twins, because it's like you feel like this is so inappropriate, like this, there's
Yeah.
no appropriate context for this connection, and it's so intense that I think like a lot of people, this is one thing that like me and my twin have gone through, is like a lot of people when they have this twin flame connection, they think that, wow, this is so intense, it must be worthy, it has to be worthy of what our society deems to be the ultimate
Right.
like expression of a connection, which is basically marriage, right?
Right.
Like, oh, you and
Right.
we have to be romantic, we have to be together, we have to be each other's everything and all, and have children or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, you have this connection, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do anything with it. You
Exactly.
probably have karma from past lives with this person, because if they're your twin flame, you hella shared past lives, which is like, of course you shared past lives. Like you're talking about some of the stuff with your twin, and I'm thinking about like the dynamic of me with mine is different. But then when I understand like my past life with my twin, I'm like, okay,
Right.
yeah, that's where that dynamic is coming from, right? Like,
Right.
so I mean, that's the other thing too, is that like you meet this person, and like that's another reason for the connection, is that you've had past lives with this person. So a lot of the time you're drawn together not just because of this psychic twin flame connection, but you're also drawn together because you have like unresolved past life karma with this person, right?
Right.
And I mean, and that's the other thing that can be confusing too, because sometimes you meet somebody and like, you know, you can talk about like you can share you thought you found your twin flame earlier. Like sometimes I think that
Yeah.
what can feel like, you know, when you're trying to make sense of a connection and you're like, is this a twin flame? Sometimes what it is you have past life karma with that person and you got to work through it and that's it, you
Right.
know?
Exactly.
Do you feel
Exactly.
like that's, yeah, do you feel like that's what happened with you and the person that when you were younger you thought was, you know, maybe your twin
Yeah,
or
that's
what?
exactly what I thought it was because when I was looking at it in retrospect, and the funny part about the one that I did think that actually turned out not to be is the exact scenario that happened with that person happened with my actual twin, but it was less extreme, if that makes any sense. So it was like the intense toxicity that was present in that connection was not as present in my current connection with my actual twin, but the scenario actually mirrored it. That's why I was telling you I was so confused. But the difference was how easily I was able to cut away from it. Because I cut away from it once and I cut away from it twice. And actually, the second time that I cut away from it, I voluntarily stepped back in. It wasn't like, oh, we're drawn back to each other. It was like, huh, I feel like so and so is reaching out, right? And it was more like that. Whereas with my actual twin, it's like, nah, I'm not dealing with this dude no more. And then I wake up in the morning and he's everywhere, and I'm like, I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
know why I can't do this. And it's like you said, the whole inappropriateness of it, in the sense of, okay, if you were to tell anybody else about all of the stuff that's going on, and the hard part about the twin flame connection, about I don't know if this happens with everybody, but one of them's almost always in a relationship. I have noticed that as well. It's like, and that's the hard part that we're talking about, like with, of course, if we get away from like Shiva and Shakti, we can go on like Krishna and Radha, right? So the story of Krishna and Radha is so beautiful, but Radha was arranged to be married to somebody else. So Radha and Krishna never got married. They actually never united until after they both, crossed over to the other side, and then they merged souls after that. But
Mm.
and to this day, they say that you cannot achieve Krishna's approval without first petitioning Radha. So like that's how connected that they are, right? But when you're on the physical plane, everybody kind of, if you read any article about that connection, there's always a bunch of different opinions like, oh, is it inappropriate because Radha was married? Is it inappropriate because A, B, and C? And they're like, no, because their love transcends all things physical, time and space and all of that, right? It's the way that
Mm.
Krishnaji was willing to still love Radha apart from her being married, apart from her being arranged. Even when she was married, when Krishna got sick, he was poisoned by somebody. Only true love on some sleeping beauty shit, only the person that truly loved him could cure him. His wife couldn't do it. His friends couldn't do it. His priests couldn't do it. They had to go all the way back to his homeland to find Radha, married and everything, for her to help him. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a different perspective into twin flames as opposed to our contemporary understanding of what couples and monogamy or whatever monoamory, is that even a word, but you know what I'm saying, essentially what's supposed to be in a relationship. And that's kind of what I've experienced as well. It's like, well, how do I feel this way about this person, but I also feel this love for somebody that I'm actually entertaining in a romantic sense, right? That's where
Yeah.
the inappropriateness gets confusing, because then it's like, well, I'm not somebody that's a hopeless romantic, to be quite honest with you. I don't know about him, like my twin, but I'm not a hopeless romantic. I am like painfully realistic. Like I will talk the shit out of anything. I'll be like, yep, that's not logical. So I'm not gonna involve myself in this shit at all. And that's where it kind of gets hard, because then if there is something interfering, not interfering, but there's something, someone else, right? Like you're entertaining somebody else or you're with somebody else, but then you have this strong connection with another person. Well, how do you explain that without, if you have a moral compass at the very least, right? Because some people would just use it as an excuse, like, okay, well then fuck the person I'm with. I'm gonna go off with this person and allow it to be as toxic or whatever the fuck is it's going to be. But for those of us that do have a moral compass, right? It's like, how do I justify these feelings I have for this person that I barely know? Right? Or this person that I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And that's where it
A
gets
hundred
weird
percent.
and it gets
Yeah.
hard, because it's like, I feel like I'm deviating from the topic, but what was the
No, you're
question?
not, because
Okay,
I
cool.
think that it, you know, if anybody is listening to this and they have a twin flame and they're trying to figure it out, like this is really helpful information that I feel like you don't find anywhere else, because like honestly, like it's exactly the same with me and my twin. And everybody that I've talked to that has a twin, they're not with their twin. They have been with their twin. Some of them have been with their twin before in the past, but a
Right.
lot of it has been like, not for that long. Or like I've even known people that married their twin, but now they're divorced or something like that, right? Where it's kind of like it doesn't matter whether you're like with that person or whether they're with somebody else, the twin flame connection is still there.
Right.
And like I think like part of it is learning to be okay with it, learning to like love your twin flame enough to allow them to be happy and live the life that they need to be happy, like
Right.
in this in that life, and to understand that. I mean, that was a big part of it for me, was like understanding that I'm not going to lose this person. I literally cannot lose this person.
I've
So like
tried.
it's like, I mean, learning to like be okay with like, you know what, like it's so funny because like I feel like every time that I've seen my twin, like that we've gotten together, like in the 3D over the last number of years, it's like there's this verbal insistence that we do of like, oh, we shouldn't be together. Oh, I don't want to be with you. And it's like kind of dumb because it's kind of like, okay, well, nobody was asking for that. Like, why are we bringing this up? But
Why
it's
are you
kind of
saying
like,
that to
I
me? That
feel
hurts
like,
a little bit.
right. But I feel like we have to say it because it's kind of like, we have to like affirm like out loud, like, okay, you know what? Like we're happy where we're at. We're not gonna like do this thing or whatever, because like honestly, I'm so happy with my partner. I do not want to break up with him. Like I also don't want to share. Like I don't want to. I've been polyamorous in the past. If it's for you, it's for you. And I'm still open to like the concept of polyamory, but I don't want to be polyamorous with my partner. I love being
Right.
just with my partner. I feel very romantically for him and et cetera, et cetera. Right. So I'm like, I don't want to like mess that up, you know? But
Right.
at the same time, like I have my twin and like we have this connection and it doesn't even matter. And I guess what like I want like the listeners that have a twin flame to understand is that like you can't lose your twin. You
At
may or
all.
may not be with them in a romantic sense in this lifetime. Don't worry about that. Like love them enough to, if it's meant to be together, come
Then you'll
together.
be
If
together.
it's not,
Exactly.
if it's not, then don't. Because like I used to miss my twin, but like how was I missing him when he was right there? Because so for me, what happened was, and if he listens to this, then like this is gonna be embarrassing because he'll know exactly that I'm talking about him. But
No, same.
it was in high school. We were in high school and we had a thing like he calls me his almost girlfriend because we had one of those like stupid
Mhm.
relationships where we were together and everybody knew we were together, but we didn't say we were together. It
Oh,
was like
okay.
that. And for like for years, right, we had this stupid connection like all through high school. And then he break up with me, right? So that's
Mhm.
that's kind of how messed up high school can be, first of all, where we weren't together, but he broke up with me. So he breaks up with me, and for I won't even go into all the reasons, but the point is he broke up with me, and then from then on, he came to me in like he would astral travel to me. He would show up in my dreams all the time. And I blamed myself for this because I felt like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I get over this
Same.
person? Like, obviously, if they're like in my dreams and showing up, like all the time, like, obviously, it means that I'm not over them. Obviously, it means that I can't move on. And it really fucked with me because I was just like, what is like, and I was like, but I objectively don't want to be with this person anymore. And like, I objectively am happy with, whoever it was that I was
Right.
with at the time, or like, but I would just feel so guilty because
Yeah.
I felt so bad because I was like, oh my gosh, like clearly I'm not over them because they're visiting me like in my, my dreams and my mind all the time. And so then
Right.
when I found out about like the whole, well, first of all, when I found out about our past life, and I was like, okay, this is making more sense. And then when I found out about the twin flame thing, then I was like, oh my gosh. And then I met up with my twin years later, and like it was just like it was crazy because it was very clear from the conversation that he remembered our past life, that like I literally confronted him about all his psychic visitations and he was like, "Wait, that was real?" And I was like, "Bro, like
I
yes, because like
can't.
you remember it all too. Like you know it too. Like
It's so
oh my
funny that you're saying
gosh."
that. I haven't actually been able to discuss my past lives with my twin at all because we haven't been able to really have a conversation without kind of shit getting in the way. But it's funny. I've never been with mine romantically. Actually, it's been this platonic thing, but it's only been like this year, right? Maybe no, October of last year. October of last year. So it's been almost a year. But at the beginning of it, I wasn't kind of getting it together. Like I would have him in my dreams all the time though. And it would be weird. Like one of the first dream I had with him, my grandma, before she had passed away, we were at a Jehovah's Witness assembly. I was traumatized. So I was trying to get the fuck out of there. Right. Like it was an assembly. I'm like, and fuck this shit, I'm out. And I'm like, trying to get out of the assembly hall. And my grandma's like in a wheelchair, which is so weird because she was never in a wheelchair. But she was in a wheelchair. And then she was like, Nayanda, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, Gam Gam, hold on right quick. I call it Gam Gam. Like, Gam Gam, hold on right quick. I gotta be right back. And I always had that dynamic with her before her last days and I kind of slowed down. But I was like, I gotta go real quick. I'll be right back. And then she like wanted to tell me something. And then that was the very first dream I had with him, where he was sitting there and he was with his best friend, who I didn't know at that time was actually dead.
Wow.
And right.
Oh, I
We
got
kind of love
chills.
mediumship. Yeah. So his best
Yeah.
friend was actually dead at that point in time, and he was sitting at the entrance of the assembly hall. And I have a boyfriend, right? So I saw him and he saw me, and then I sat on the other side of his friend. And then I like bent over and I'm like, what's up? Because I knew he was obviously there to tell me something. And I could see on his face he was hurt by that, right? And I was just like, oh, I don't know you. Like, wow. And to be honest with you, without, I hope my boyfriend doesn't listen to this, I am very much attracted to my twin, right? So it was like, no, I'm not going to get myself in no type of trouble in the dream state. It's 12:12 right now. In the dream state, in the physical state, I'm going to sit my ass right on the side of your homie. What's up? What we talking about? But I've never been with my twin romantically before for it to be kind of toxic. It's just been kind of in this friend state where it's like trying to figure out what exactly this means and why exactly we're linking up, because there's always one twin that's more aware of what's going on as well, right? So it's like he seems to be the twin that knows more about the connection than I do, right?
Oh,
And we
interesting.
talked about
Interesting.
astral traveling. He definitely travels and he'll make it known that he came, right? At one point in time, I remember feeling him, but I was awake. I was awake and I felt him come in, but
Yeah.
I couldn't see him, but I felt him come in. And I got a little bit annoyed because I wasn't decent, but I got a little bit annoyed and I was like, how does he do that? Like, how is he able to do that? And then there was one dream I had before I ended up moving to Cali where he was in my kitchen, like in my old apartment, and he was cooking at my stove and I could see the back of his head. And then there was these girls that I did not trust, and then they were trying to get in personal information from me, right? And they had asked me a question, and before I even opened my mouth, I saw him. He turned his head to the side, and it was a very protective energy, like you better not tell these bitches where the fuck you're going. And I'm like, oh. And then I was like, I haven't quite figured it out yet. And then he like kind of smirked and then turned around. But it was funny because I didn't trust him to begin with, right? So it's like there's a very protective, we look out for each other, right? Which my guides have kind of told me that that's something that we've kind of sworn into, that we were going to protect each other in every lifetime, right? And that's proven true.
Ah, interesting.
But I know it's weird, but then there's this like tug of war, but we're not being consistent. And it's driving me crazy. And that's why I question what the meaning of our connection is or where it's going to go. Because most people I know have been with their twin at some point in time. I've never been with my twin. This is still like the beginning of it. And it's almost feeling like we're clearing out the toxicity and the traits, because the other thing that they said, or my teacher said, was that for twin flames to even be friends, they have to be very emotionally aware, right? Because the way that twin flames trigger each other, for most people, you can't stop and realize what you're doing in the situation. And of course, this is exempt from abusive relationships, right? Abusive relationships, totally different story. But when it comes to the twin flame dynamic, you're dealing with somebody that is mirroring your strengths and your flaws, right? They could also be showing you your potential if you could get your shit together. And In the
Right.
professional sense, that's how I feel about him, right? Professionally, he's a goal, right? Like he is a
Mm.
hustler, like he's a businessman, like he's consistent with that. He's very diligent, very detail oriented. He's earned what he has, right? Emotionally, he struggles a little bit. Now with me, emotionally, I'm good. Professionally, I struggle with all the things that he's really good at. And like I look at him and I'm like, damn it, I want to be like you. I want to be whatever the hell you got going on. I want to be able to accomplish that for myself as well. I can feel the we're cool, but we're not cool, but we're cool, but we're not, but we're cool, but we're not, but we're cool, but we're not, but we're cool, but we're not. It's like, and then for me, I can't
Gosh.
even tell if it's my emotions or not. And I'm just kind of like trying to calm myself, like, okay, let's be
Oh, yeah.
realistic. Let's be grounded. Like he's going through a lot. I'm going through a lot. And at the same time, I'm like, but why do I feel like he's always playing with me though? And then I can feel the same thing from him. And I'm like, but I'm not playing with you. And then he's like, I'm not playing with you. And I'm like, but then what is going on? And that's why, like, I tell people all the time, you'll know if it's a twin flame if you actually did the work to try to get away from them and it's just not working. You know what I'm saying? It's like you tried, you did the cord cutting, honey, you did the blocking, you did the I'm never talking to this person again. And it's not in the whole like, oh, I'm still looking back and checking on you. No, I legitimately did not look for you and you just popped up. And it's like, how are you here right now?
That's what I'm saying. No, and I think that's why it's so hot and cold, right? Because it's like this, for one thing, like hot and cold, because both people in the situation are feeling some type of way about the intensity of the connection and
Right.
how it does or does not fit into the life that they have right now. So there's all of that going on because you're just like, hey, this doesn't fit into my life. This isn't making sense. This isn't like, no, right? There's
Right.
like the logical part of you. There's the way that your life is set up. There's all of this XYZ, and it can really mess with you, right? But then it's also like it's such an easy psychic connection, I will say. Like
Definitely.
Neanda, like you're a psychic like me. So, like we can psychically connect with almost anyone, but like with the twin, it's like, God, it's just there. It's already there. Like you don't even, you're not
There's no
trying.
effort.
You're not like, yeah. And so it's just, you can't escape it. And that can be like a really scary thing.
Right.
Like, that you can't escape it and you can't escape this person, basically. And I feel like I've come to the point where I'm just like, I've just accepted that my twin is a part of me, and I talk to him when he phones me up or comes to visit or whatever. Or like I was telling you earlier, how he'll send me SOS dreams when he wants to talk
Yeah, I
through
remember that.
something. Yeah, and then I'll astral travel to him and be like, "What's going on?" And then he'll be like, "This, ah!" But what makes me mad is that like he's a Virgo rising, and so he's very like scientifically minded. And so
Hmm.
the whole thing, even though he's experiencing it, he's got a Pisces moon too. So even though he's experiencing all of this, and like I said, when we met up, he was like acknowledging like a lot of it. He at the time he was like, wait, that was real. Like he's giving me this look like this, how do I fit this into my reality, kind of thing.
Right.
Because like even when he talks to me now, like he'll be like, well, I don't really know if you're really here or if this is real, but whatever, I'm going to talk to you anyway. And it pisses me off because I feel like, dude, I've put in all this work, like being there for you, being your friend, like, and you don't even like acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God. I think that
And
that's how my twin
yeah.
feels because I say that all the time when
Ugh.
like we're communicating to and I like have a whole psychic business. Okay. But I'll be like, is this really him talking to me right now? And I'll be like, okay,
Oh my
I was like, if
gosh.
this is you, if this
Oh
is
my god.
you, and he
You're
will
pissing
go
him
out
off,
of his
Nina.
way. Oh, I know I'm pissing him off. If he's listening to this, I care about you. But I'm just like, I just need it. Well, first of all, we have to have the conversation in person about this connection, right? We're not talking about it. And the biggest thing is because, well, I won't expose too much detail, but it's like, for me personally, I'm like, okay, this is really intense and I've been through this before. And he doesn't know I was traumatized from my last experience with somebody I thought was my twin, right? So it's like when he talks to me, I'll be like, is this really you? No. And like I'll give you an example. One time we were I don't know what you would call this because I have these visions of him and I like hanging out, but it feels like we're actually hanging out like in present time. So like there's a lot of like listening to music and dancing because we're both into music, right? And I ended up turning on a song that I really liked, and apparently he doesn't like that artist, right? And
Okay.
how do I say this without exposing too much detail? Well, anyway, I was like, I turned the song on and he just sat down, and I was like, "What, you not gonna dance to this?" And then he was like, "Nah, I don't fuck with him." And I was, "You don't fuck with him?" And he was like, "No." And then I learned later, like in like the 3D and the physical world, he actually does not like that guy. Like he does not like that artist for real, for
Yeah.
real. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, well, damn, I thought I was crazy. So I know he's getting annoyed with me. But the other thing too is I don't think he realizes how new I am to all this. Like if any listeners remember, I was a Jehovah's Witness only 4 years ago. Like I've only been into the whole mystic stuff for the past like 2 years. So for me, already dealing with like spirits and dead people and all that, that's a lot. Now dealing with a living human that is this connected to me that he can literally post himself singing a song that I was practicing in the bathroom for weeks. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Or like me, I just bought like a clear quartz pendulum, right? And I lost it because I was asking too many questions about him. Because my guides get annoyed very easily with me. So I was asking too many questions about him and it disappeared the same day that I got it, right? And I'm like, fuck, I can't find my pendulum. Well, then he, only a couple weeks later, posts a picture of a clear quartz pendulum. And I'm like, how the fuck are you doing that? But then I'll still be like, yeah, if this is really you. So I can
Oh my
understand.
gosh. Yeah, I used to doubt the information that I was getting. Like I knew he's not on social media like at all. But like I knew when he was getting married and just stuff like that, like where it's kind of, and I used to doubt it, and now I don't anymore because it's just been confirmed over and over and over again. Every time he tells me something very specific about what's happening to him, it's true. And it checks out and it ends up, being confirmed true, 3D, et cetera, et cetera. And so now I just don't even like question it anymore because I'm just like, okay. But yeah, my twin is totally like still in the like questioning if I'm really there phase of things, which is like, I just need to get over it because that's my Leo getting annoyed because I just want the recognition. But oh, okay, so this is not to do with twin flames, but I was laughing when you were talking about the pendulum when you said your guides were getting annoyed at you with the pendulum.
Uh-huh.
Um, because like, so I wonder though if, because this is what it is with my guides, so maybe it's the same with yours, is that like it's not that they're getting annoyed that you're asking questions, it's that they're getting annoyed at you for using a really simplistic divination tool that has like yes or no questions, like a pendulum does. Because like
That's fair.
yesterday, in preparation for this podcast, I pulled out my tarot deck and I was like, all right, Zeus, especially after I read the mythology of twin flames leads back to Zeus. And Zeus is the one who's told me stuff about twin flames. So I was
Right.
like, I'd never heard that mythology until yesterday. And so that I was just like, oh, you really, really, you're behind this, kind of thing. Cause like, I don't really take mythology at face value. A lot of it's symbolic. Most of what
Right.
you read is like not actually what happened
Literal.
or how it is. But it was just interesting to me, right? And so I started pulling some cards. I was like, all right, Zeus, what's going on here? And then I was like, ask him some yes or no questions and pulling these cards. And he's just literally like sits there and he folds his arms and looks at me. He's like, is this really how you want to do this? Like with your deck? You want to be pulling yes or no questions with me? I'm right here. Talk to me. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like sometimes it's that. Like sometimes when you have such a strong connection with your allies, they get annoyed when you use something like simplistic, like, oh, I'm going to ask a question and you give me a yes or no. And they're like, why don't you just ask me and I'll explain it to you? Like, dumb, dumb.
Well, you know
Like,
what's
is this
also
what you do
funny?
with your friends? Like, yeah.
It's also funny that you say that because I think I'm also, when it comes to this connection, I always ask my guides, like you're saying, simplistic questions about it because I'm always like addressing it in the way that I handle relationships, whether it's healthy or not is a different story. But I'm like, normally when people exhibit certain behaviors, I'm quick to dip, like jump ship. I've tried to jump ship. There's no jumping ship with him. So it's like I'll ask the same questions, but they're very simple questions like, well, should I just cut him off? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, should I like try to be with him? They're like, we didn't say that either. And I'm like, well, then what am I gonna do? And they're like, well, you just need to go with the flow. And I'm like, you're telling me to go with the flow. And they're like, yeah, just go with the flow. Part of me feels like I know this man more than anybody else in the world. Right. And the other part of me is like, I actually don't know you
Mhm.
well at all. Like the real part of me is like the physical part of me is like, I don't know you. So it's like, well, he could do this, he could do this, he could do this, he could do that. And then I'm sure he's doing the same thing, right? And then we're both kind of being hyper reactive. And that's why I say that the thing is so fucking annoying. It's like, okay, well, why can't you do this? And he's like, why can't you do that? And I'm like, okay, but we're not talking about what I can do. Like, we're talking about you right now. So it's like, I feel like my guides, honestly, this is a connection that's nothing like anything I've ever dealt with, right? Because he
Yeah.
doesn't feel malicious. I can feel his energy. I know when somebody's evil. Okay, the last guy I knew when he was fucking evil, but I'm like him. He doesn't feel malicious. He doesn't feel. He feels confused, and I'm confused. But the difference is, I don't know what the difference is. And welcome to the twin flame connection. I don't know what the difference is. So they're always like, just focus on your music, focus on your. I'm gonna try to be as physically logical as I can be with this connection. And then
Hmm.
if we could be friends, and you never know what happens in life, but if we could be friends and then it happens to something else in the future, okay, cool. We'll let that happen if it happens. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to hear everybody's twin experience because it's all equally intense for all of us, right? And it's just kind of like, so what's the point? And every single article you read will be like, well, if you just focus on yourself and your own healing, then eventually you and your twin will unite. And it's like, okay, I think that you're underestimating how much this thing can consume you. And it's like, I don't know fully what's going on with him. I just know that I can feel when he's going through something, right? And then I can put
Yeah.
A, B, and C together because of other details that I can pull, but I don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't really know what the lessons are, but what I will say is I'm grateful for them because I have grown a lot just in our encounter, right? It's like just through even having him in my energy, although it kind of drives me a little bit insane, just having even the little conflicts that we have had have helped me to grow so much in my life, like as a person. And I know that he
Yeah.
feels the same way, but both of us, I feel like we kind of resent the intensity because it's like, okay, well, if we're not going to be together, then what the fuck is it? What's the point of this? What is all this for? And I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it's funny as you're talking, I'm like, wow, I feel like such a like old uh such an old seasoned twin flame because I'm thinking about like where you're at with your twin and where I'm at with my twin. I'm like, damn, we're really mature. We've been doing this for a while. Like
No,
because
seriously.
and it was actually really nice like meeting up with him like a while ago because when we did have that like in-person conversation about our psychic connection because like since that time like I know you're talking about like oh you know he's going through stuff but I don't always know what exactly he's going through I can just feel it. Okay, so since I had that conversation with him it's gotten like communication has gotten so much more clear because like it's like he will speak directly to me because now he is like more confident in the connection, if that makes sense. And so, like, now I don't just get confusing emotional dreams from him, but he'll send me a confusing emotional dream. And then, like, I'll be like waking up and I'll message him and I'll be like, hey, I got your dream. What's up? And then he'll be like, this is what's happening. Da 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 da. Like, very directly, which I didn't have before. So, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm giving you advice on like what, like, to talk to him about it or not, because I don't know if it's going to have the same effect. But like that was super, super helpful for like me and my twin, even though he's like still on the like fence of like accepting it as reality. He's still acting as if it is. So it's like
I would pay the little money I have to be able to actually talk to this man. I have half of my chart is in Scorpio. Yes, half of it is in Capricorn. I need some physical, like just give it like it ain't even got to be hours and hours and hours. Just give me some physical proof. We only talked about it once. But when we didn't talk about it, it was really roundabout, right? And it was at that point I kind of realized what his intent was, right? And I'm like, okay, I see what your intention is, but I don't really know you like that. And I feel like he took offense to it. And I was just like, it's not offense, it's just I don't know you, right?
yeah.
And then he's like, well, you do know me. And I'm like, okay, yes and no. I do know you, but I don't know you. Like I know you, but I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you. But
yeah.
yeah, I feel like maybe once we get to that age of the twin flame connection, like seasoned twins, because I do feel both of us kind of calming down. I hope people relate to this. I hope somebody in the comments tells me, like, oh yeah, I'm also confused as shit about this because girl, like, this is
Yeah.
not, and the fact that it's coming to me at this age is what's confusing me because I'm like, I thought I left all this shit back. I thought I left all these. I thought I left it. I thought I grew. I thought I evolved.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. So can we talk real quick about
Yeah, yeah.
like I've also like met people that were like, oh, me and my daughter are twin flames, or like me and my sister are twin flames, you know? And so like I mean, I've heard that too. So like I just want to put it out there for our listeners that a twin flame isn't necessarily somebody of the opposite sex and isn't necessarily somebody that you could have a romantic or sexual relationship with. It doesn't always look like that. It could be like literally anybody. And that could make it even more confusing because I haven't had this, I haven't seen this yet, but I haven't like I imagine this could happen is where you could have a twin flame and your twin flame could be like significantly older than you. And then that could
Yeah.
cause even more problems because you're like, oh my gosh, I have this connection with this like person that's a lot older than me or this person that's a lot younger than me. And now I feel like a horrible person or something like that. You know what I mean?
No, seriously, mine's like almost a decade older than me, and I was just like,
Oh,
he's
really?
younger than me. Yeah, he's like,
I mean,
I'm
but
28.
that's doable though. I was thinking
Well,
about
yeah,
something
our age is cool
crazy.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, if I would have been 21 and he was like 31, it's a different story. But it's like 28 and 30 something. It's like, okay, that's fine. But no, I have heard of like twin flames being like 18 and 30. I've definitely heard of that. And that's where the whole it doesn't necessarily make sense on the physical plane. It's not supposed to because it's not
Yeah.
something physical. It is very much something spiritual. If it manifests in the physical, it's a totally different story. And like for most people, it manifests in the physical first. And then you realize through the connection, like, holy shit, this is my twin flame. And I feel like most people that I've spoken to have had that experience where it's been like, I had one guy I was talking to, and then he was like, yeah, I realized that this guy was my twin flame after we broke up. And then he was telling me about how they both were like super alike, but super toxic. And everything that he described to me was what I was going through with mine, except he had actually been with his twin before. Right. You can't control whether this is going to be somebody that you're with romantically or not. Like you said, it could be a relative. I've never heard of it being a relative yet, but as you were talking, I was realizing, that the only universal truth is that the truth is universal. Does that make sense? So it's kind of
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
it's like for me, I'm like, I've never heard, but I have heard it. But okay, who am I to say that their
I
experience
think
isn't
yeah,
valid?
because
Right.
I think so the people that have told me, oh, my twin flame is, my child or my twin flame is my sister or, that kind of thing. They say it to me like in like a hushed tone of voice because I think they feel a lot like they're not allowed to be part of the conversation because the twin flame
Uh,
dynamic is so often a romantic or sexual connection as well. So, they kind of feel like, oh, like I don't want to be saying that my sister's my twin flame because people are going to get some like incestuous idea. The psychic connection that you have with that person and the karmic connection and whatever,
right.
because like it's also like you are two different people though. So like they have their karmic lessons and you have your karmic lessons and you're here for some reason and they're here for some reason and like you have an agenda, they have an agenda and like
Right.
sometimes that, like when I first, like with my twin, by the way, I'm not saying that you can't be with your twin, that you can't marry them, that you can't be happy, that you can't have children. Like you absolutely can. Um, that's absolutely a possibility. Like what I heard from my twin like a long time ago was like, because I was like, am I ever gonna like be with this person and resolve this? And this was way
Right.
back, like this is way back. I think I was like 19,
Hmm.
and what I heard immediately, I heard the divine say, in the next life, not in this one. And I was like, shh. That goes back to our episode on past lives because that was when I had that past life flashback, right? Because that was like
Oh.
immediate, that all hit me at once. And like I said, it wasn't at that point, I didn't know anything about twin flames. I didn't believe in, reincarnation or anything like that. So to me, that was like wild, but it was this huge weight off my shoulder because it was like simultaneous validation for how I was feeling and also like a promise of resolution at some point, right?
Yeah. It's
It's
funny is that
amazing.
my guides actually did give me an answer about my twin and I. Because I was like, eventually I got upset and I was like, so what the fuck is the point of this connection then? And they were like, for both of you guys to learn boundaries.
Ooh,
And I was like,
there it is. That's
yeah.
amazing.
It's
That's awesome.
for both of you guys to learn boundaries. And I was like, okay. And then I'm sitting here, and that's probably why we're both going crazy, right? It's just like, okay, so what's
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I was thinking too, like, I cannot remember what it was that somebody said to me last week that triggered this thought, but I was thinking too about how much my twin has changed my life, like in so many ways, like absolutely everything. It's funny because, like, we haven't been really together since high school. And
Right,
yet, like, arguably the most influential person in my entire life.
right,
How could this even be possible when this person has not been a part of my like 3D experience for the most part? Like I said, we have got together a couple times. Um, but for the most part, we live in separate lives, you know?
right.
So it's like, how is that even possible? But it is though,
Yeah, it is.
because yeah, it's crazy. So it's kind of like, oh, why is why is my twin in my life when we're not going to be together or something like that? It's like, uh, you guys have such an incredible like opportunity to teach each other things, to like to be there for each other. I mean, how cool is it that you have somebody who like can just psychically be there for you like right away? That's pretty crazy.
It is, but I'm very grateful for his presence in general, and I do get really excited when I do feel his energy, like, I do. I do. It's just really confusing for me.
Um, I do remember that like at the beginning when I met my twin, first of all, the instant connection, like you were talking, like you meet them and you're like, it just like hits you, like it's like a train just hit you in the chest, right? Because you're like, oh
Right.
my gosh, and you know them and it doesn't make sense and blah 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 blah. Like I mean, I remember that connection being like as strong as it is now, feeling different because we been through so much now, but like as intense, as strong, like maybe even stronger, like week one, like day one. You know what I'm saying? So it's just
Right.
that's the insane part. So for people that are listening, that's something to look for. If you're like, is this person my twin? Well, did you get hit by a bus when you met them?
We could talk about this for hours, I swear to
I
God.
know. I think we need to wrap this up and come back and do alien abductions.
Yes.
Thank you so much for like joining me on this podcast and talking about all this stuff. I super appreciate you. My clients absolutely 100% are totally in love with you. They can't get enough of you. And same, honestly, same. Also, thank you to our listeners. Thank you for listening to the end of this podcast. And we hope that it was really helpful for you in whatever twin flame situation you're going through. So thanks for tuning in. Join us next time for alien abductions.
Bye.